The morning sky is a pale, washed-out blue, thin clouds stretching like torn silk across the horizon. Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanaka of the Imperial Japanese Navy leans forward in the cockpit of his A6M0, squinting against the sun as he scans the vast expanse below. The engine hums steadily, the familiar vibration of the Nakajima Sakai giving him that subtle confidence every Zero pilot feels, the knowledge that he is flying one of the most agile fighters ever built. His flight of 6 Zeros cuts across the sky in a loose V formation, the sunlight glinting off their smooth ivory fuselages. The air is calm, the mission routine, a reconnaissance sweep to test American positions around the newly fortified Russell Islands. Then Tanaka spots it, a lone aircraft lifting off from a rough American airstrip carved out of the jungle. Ugly, unbalanced, heavy. Its wings kink downward before sweeping back up again like the folded legs of a giant seabird struggling to take flight. Tanaka laughs into his oxygen mask. "Bent-winged bird," he mutters. "Useless American engineering." The other pilots notice it too. One of them, Ensign Mori, keys his radio. "What is that? An American mistake?" The squadron erupts and chuckles. From their vantage, the aircraft looks absurd. Nose long, fuselage bulky, wings contorted in an unnatural curve. Compared to the elegant, responsive Zero, this thing appears like a drunken attempt at design. Tanaka banks his Zero slightly and watches the strange machine climb, slowly, awkwardly, as if wrestling the air itself. "It can barely lift off the ground," he says, a waste of their fuel. He is close enough now to see the large radial engine, the protruding supercharger intake, the wide landing gear still folding into the wings. The aircraft wobbles in the climb, dipping momentarily before stabilizing. Tanaka smirks. This is what the Americans are building now? The pilot in the strange aircraft has no idea he's being watched. He's too busy fighting the plane's torque, making constant corrections as he angles upward. Tanaka can almost see the struggle through the distant glass. To him, this only confirms what Japanese intelligence had whispered for months, that American engineering lacked finesse. They relied on brute strength, not refinement, on raw power, not subtlety. Tanaka nudges his control stick forward and signals his men. Let's greet their new toy. The Zeros descend in graceful arcs, engines singing, sunlight flashing off their wings. They close the distance effortlessly, slicing through the air like blades. The American plane continues its climb, still unaware. At 10,000 feet, Tanaka pulls alongside it from the sunward side, the classic approach. He tilts his head to study the cockpit. The pilot inside is young, maybe early 20s, face tense with concentration. His aircraft, up close, is even stranger. The wings curve downward, then sharply back up. The fuselage looks too long, the tail almost undersized. Tanaka taps the side of his canopy with a gloved finger. Impossible design. He rolls his Zero under the Corsair, preparing to pull up behind it for an easy kill. His squadron follows, feeling the familiar rush of predatory certainty. Against a Zero, nothing this clumsy should stand a chance. But then something unexpected happens. The bent-wing bird shudders. Once, and then the engine roars. Not the smooth hum of a Zero, but a deep, violent thunder that vibrates through the air like distant artillery. The aircraft surges forward as if released from a catapult, its propeller a spinning disk of fury. Tanaka's eyes widen. The American plane shoots past 300 knots in a heartbeat, accelerating so quickly he momentarily loses track of it. His Zero, for all its elegance, cannot match the raw power of that climb. "What?" Mori gasps over the radio. "How is it so fast?" Tanaka snaps his head upward, searching. There, above them, the strange, ugly machine angles into a steep climb, contrail forming behind it. The Zeros give chase, but the gap widens with every second. The mockery stops. The laughter fades. The sky suddenly feels different. Tanaka steadies his breathing, forcing his mind back into discipline. "This was not expected," he whispers. "The Americans have built something new. Not beautiful, not graceful, but dangerous." And in the pit of Hiroshi Tanaka's stomach, a quiet dread begins to stir. Because that strange bent-wing bird, the one he mocked moments earlier, just did something a Zero was never meant to match. The Corsair slammed onto the pierced steel runway with a bone-shaking thud, bounced hard, and came back down in a shower of dust and pebble spray. Lieutenant Sam Walker gritted his teeth and fought the stick as the bird danced left, then right, like a wild horse refusing the saddle. The engine's growl thundered across the airstrip, echoing off fuel drums and half-collapsed revetments. "Easy, easy," he muttered, boots hammering the rudder pedals. The plane finally skidded to a grudging stop. Sam's gloved hands trembled. Every landing felt like a bet he wasn't sure he'd win. He opened his canopy. Hot, humid air slammed into him like a wall. Marines rushed toward the aircraft, waving for him to cut the engine. As the massive propeller slowed, the F4U Corsair, number 217, sat steaming and hateful, like it resented every second on the ground. Corporal Shorty Donnelly climbed onto the wing, wiping sweat and engine filth from his brow. "Nice landing, Lieutenant," Shorty said dryly. "Bird just about killed you again." Sam unstrapped himself, shaking his head. If I ever meet the guy who designed this landing gear, I'm going to sock him in the jaw, Shorty cackled. Bent-winged bastard does whatever it wants. Marines say she's possessed. Sam climbed down the ladder, boots hitting the ground with a thud. The mechanics swarmed the plane, checking the shocks, scraping mud from the wheel wells, tightening anything that looked even remotely loose. Oil dripped from the cowling, hissing on the hot metal plates below. Still pulls left? Shorty asked. Like a mule, Sam said. Feels like she wants to roll herself right into the jungle. Shorty spat into the dirt. Yank her around wrong and she'll snap roll you into the ocean. I heard the Navy grounded the whole fleet. Sam nodded grimly. Everyone had heard. The U.S. Navy had tried carrier landings with the Corsair months earlier. It hadn't gone well. Broken landing gear. Collapsed wings. Pilots tumbling off the deck into the sea. The Navy brass wanted nothing further to do with the thing, so they dumped it on the Marines. Sam ran a hand along the bent gullwing. It was hot, baking under the Pacific sun. The wing's strange shape had been designed to accommodate the massive propeller and huge engine, but the result was a beast that demanded constant attention. A Zero could float through the air like a drifting leaf. The Corsair? It felt like trying to steer a locomotive through a hurricane. Lieutenant Henry Tex McAllister strode over, his flight suit half unzipped, sweat staining the collar. Heard you scared the hell out of the Japanese this morning, Sam snorted. Scared myself more. That climb rate, though, felt like she was trying to punch through the sky. Tex nodded. That's the Pratt & Whitney R2800 for you. Biggest damn radial engine ever strapped to a fighter. He pointed to the dark hills beyond the airfield. Well, they're watching us, you know. Japanese scouts, probably laughing their asses off every time one of us nose plants on landing. Sam looked at the Corsair. Its canopy glinted, its cowling still shivered with cooling metal. Ugly, mean, temperamental. And yet, when she's in the air, Sam said softly, she flies like she has something to prove. Tex smirked. She'd better. We got Zeros running circles around our Wildcats. The brass says this bird's supposed to change the tide. Sam didn't reply. He remembered the morning, climbing, watching the jungle blur beneath him. The Corsair had leapt upward like a rocket once he fed her throttle. No Zero could have matched that speed, but a fighter was only as good as its pilot's confidence. And right now, most pilots feared her more than they feared the enemy. Shorty returned with a clipboard. Lieutenant, command wants you in the tent. Says you need to file a report about that Japanese patrol. Sam wiped the sweat from his eyes. They don't believe me, do they? They think I imagined a whole flight of Zeros. Shorty shrugged. Maybe. But whatever you saw this morning, Lieutenant, it was real enough to put a chill in your voice. Sam headed toward the operations tent, past rows of Corsairs in various states of disrepair. Open cowlings, scattered tools, men shouting for wrenches and parts. The air tasted of diesel fumes and burnt rubber. Every few seconds, an engine backfired across the field like artillery. Inside the tent, the maps lay spread across rough wooden tables. Radios crackled. Officers leaned over the charts, their uniforms stained with dust and grease. Sweat dripped from their hairlines. Major Grant looked up. Walker, you spotted the new Japanese patrol routes? Yes, sir, Sam said. 6 Zeros. I got close.
And?
Sam hesitated. Then they mock us, sir. Grant raised a brow. Mock us? Oh, yes. They've been watching us struggle with these landings. They think the Corsair is a joke. Grant's jaw flexed. Good. Let them laugh. He leaned in, voice low and deliberate. Because when these birds are finally mastered, those Zeros won't be laughing anymore. Outside, another Corsair engine thundered to life, shaking the tent like distant thunder. Sam felt it in his chest. Temperamental, wild, untamed, but powerful. The Japanese had seen only the Corsair's weakness. They had not yet seen its wrath. The sky was a blazing, merciless blue, the kind of light that flattened everything into hard silhouettes and made the ocean below look like hammered steel. Lieutenant Sam Walker wiped sweat from his brow and adjusted his oxygen mask. His Corsair's massive radial engine thundered ahead of him, vibrating through the cockpit frame like a barely restrained animal. Devil One! This is Devil 3. You seeing this? Crackled Tex McAllister's voice over the radio. Sam's eyes narrowed. Yes, he saw it. Specks, distant at first, then growing, like insects swarming against the sun. Zeros. A full squadron. Sam's pulse quickened. He nudged the stick and climbed a few hundred more feet. The Corsair responded with its usual reluctance. Then, as the RPM spiked, it lunged upward like it had been kicked. The horizon dropped away. The clouds rushed beneath his wings. Below him, Tex whistled. They're coming in pretty. Formation looks tight. Sam's jaw clenched. Japanese fighters never came sloppy. Their pilots treated the sky like a temple. Precision was worship. He rolled his Corsair over to position himself above the incoming formation. Now or never, he muttered. The Zeros didn't see him yet. They were busy, angled toward an American supply convoy, hugging the coast. An easy target. Too easy. Sam's grip tightened. Devil Squadron, he said calmly. We're diving. The Corsair pitched nose down. Gravity yanked him forward. His stomach lurched. The world streaked upward. The engine roared into a scream. The airframe rattled. His breath caught in his chest. The bent-wing bird was born for this. As he dove, a Zero pilot finally spotted him. Hiroshi Tanaka. His eyes widened behind his goggles. That same ugly aircraft he had mocked, back again. Only this time, it was falling like a silver hammer from heaven. "Brake! Brake!" Tanaka shouted into his radio. The Zeros scattered into evasive arcs, wings flashing in sunlight, engines shrieking. Too late. Sam felt the world compress. The tunnel vision of combat. His thumb hovered over the trigger. Crosshairs steadied. The Zero in front of him filled the sight picture. He fired. The Corsair's .650 caliber machine guns erupted. Tracers tore through the air in bright white ribbons. Aluminum skin peeled from the Zero in violent curls. Smoke burst from its engine. Flames spit from the cowling. The Japanese fighter rolled, trailing fire, spiraling down toward the glittering ocean. Sam didn't watch it hit. He jerked the stick left, pulling into a wide arc. G-forces crushed his ribs. The harness dug into his shoulders. Another Zero appeared off his 2 o'clock, climbing hard, trying to meet him head-on. Sam swung his Corsair upward. The gull wings sliced the air. The Japanese pilot hesitated. The Corsair wasn't supposed to climb like that. Wasn't supposed to turn like that. Wasn't supposed to move like that. Tanaka's voice crackled across the Japanese channel. "Be careful, it is fast, too fast." Sam triggered another burst. The second Zero shattered into a spray of fragments and smoke trails. Tex whooped over the radio. "Hell of a shot, Sam. They're breaking formation." Below the dogfight, the convoy ships continued undisturbed, churning steady wakes through the sunlit sea. But above, chaos consumed the sky. Zeros twisting in spirals. Corsairs diving, climbing, hammering the air with gunfire. Engines screaming at redline. Shell casings recoiling off metal wings. Sam locked onto another Zero. Its pilot pulled into a tight, corkscrewing evasive maneuver. A bad choice. The Corsair could follow spirals now. Sam matched the movement, his controls straining, his aircraft groaning. At the apex of the turn, he squeezed the trigger. Short burst. The Zero's canopy exploded. The plane snapped into a death spin. 3 kills. In under 6 minutes. Tex's voice chimed in, breathless. "What the hell did this thing morph into?" Sam didn't answer. Not yet. He was too busy scanning the sky, searching for the last stragglers. He spotted Hiroshi Tanaka pulling away, banking sharply, diving toward a cloud bank for cover. Smart. Skilled. Sam rolled in pursuit. The Corsair descended fast. Faster than any Zero could safely follow. Tanaka felt it, heard it, the thunder of that monstrous engine closing in behind him. He glanced back. The American plane was nearly on him, wings slicing through sunlight, a predatory shape against the sky. Tanaka's breath caught. This was no longer the slow, clumsy machine he had mocked from above weeks before. This was something else entirely. Something brutal. Something relentless. Tanaka dove into a cloud. Sam followed. The world went white, humming, spinning, disorienting. Then, both planes burst out the opposite side, their wings nearly overlapping. Sam lined up the shot. Tanaka yanked his stick hard, narrowly escaping death as his Zero snapped into a vertical climb. Its only true advantage left. Sam didn't bother chasing. The Zero could run, but it couldn't hide. Tex's voice returned. "Sam, you just tore a hole through their squadron. Jesus." Sam exhaled slowly. The Corsair hovered behind him, engine rumbling, wings glinting. No longer awkward, no longer hated. "No," Sam said quietly. "She did all the work." Behind him, smoke trails dotted the sea. And in the distance, climbing back toward safety, Hiroshi Tanaka felt something he hadn't felt in the war so far. The bent-wing bird had come alive. The air on the ground was thick, humid, metallic, buzzing with cicadas. Hiroshi Tanaka stepped off his Zero and removed his goggles with trembling hands. His mechanic rushed over, bowing slightly. "Lieutenant," he said, "you look pale." Tanaka didn't answer. He stared at his aircraft's cowling, still warm, still humming softly, yet powerless compared to what he had faced in the sky. "What kind of American machine climbs like that?" he whispered. The mechanic blinked. "Climbs? A wildcat cannot—" "It was not a wildcat," Tanaka snapped. Pilots nearby turned their heads. Tanaka exhaled, calming his tone. It was something new. He stepped toward the operations hut, boots crunching on gravel. Inside, an intelligence officer glanced up from a stack of aerial reconnaissance photos. "You encountered the American prototype again?" Tanaka nodded stiffly. "It is no prototype. They are deploying it." The officer frowned. "The one with bent wings? Their engineers must be desperate." Tanaka slammed a hand on the table. "It outran me, outclimbed me, outdived me. I underestimated it once. I will not do so again." The room fell silent. Japanese aviators lived by confidence, superiority. They had ruled the skies since Pearl Harbor, but what Tanaka described contradicted everything they believed. "You outran?" the officer stuttered. Tanaka didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. It fired 6 guns so fast the sky lit up. It tore through our escort like rice paper. The officer stared, stunned. And, at that moment, outside in the blistering sunlight, another explosion echoed, American bombers pounding a ridge south of the airfield. Ground tremors rippled through the hut. For the first time, Tanaka felt something worse than fear. Uncertainty. Meanwhile, Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. Tex McAllister burst into the tent, still soaked in sweat from his morning sortie. "Sam, you're not going to believe this." Sam sat at a folding table, cleaning the stained barrel of his .50 cal machine gun. "Try me." Tex tossed a crumpled message form onto the table. Sam picked it up. From command. Subject, F4U update. Navy considers returning Corsair to carrier service. Performance reports exceed expectations. Sam raised an eyebrow. Carrier service? They kicked us off deck 6 months ago. Tex grinned. "Yeah, well, might have changed their tune after you ripped through 4 zeros last week." Sam leaned back in his chair, absorbing the news. The Corsair had gone from a dangerous design failure to a possible carrier-ready beast again. "They still have to fix the landing bounce," Tex said. "And the damn visibility. Can't see anything over that nose." Sam tapped the tabletop with one finger. "But she flies," he said quietly. "Boy, does she fly." Tex nodded. "You know what the Japanese are calling her?" Sam shook his head. Tex smirked. "The Whistling Death." Sam blinked. "Seriously?" "Seriously. That big supercharger intake makes a sound when you dive. Like a scream." Sam imagined it, the bent-wing plane dropping like a hammer, shrieking through the sky as it unleashed tracers. "Fitting name," he said. "April 12th, 1943. 19,000 feet over Vella Lavella." A formation of zeros glided in an elegant arc along the coast. Tanaka led them, the sun flashing off his canopy. Below, the jungle canopy rippled like an emerald sea. Nothing stirred except distant plumes of smoke from American outposts. Then, a faint whistle. At first, Tanaka thought it was the wind. Then it grew louder, sharper, like an incoming shell. "Dive sound?" he muttered, scanning the sky. His wingman Mori suddenly jolted upright in the cockpit. "Above, something diving, fast." Tanaka looked up, expecting maybe a wildcat. Instead, a monstrous silhouette burst from the sun. Wings bent, engines screaming with a fury that filled the sky. The Corsair, in a heartbeat, it fired. Tanaka watched in horror as Mori's Zero erupted in flames. The aircraft disintegrated midair, spinning in a fiery corkscrew toward the trees. Tanaka's radio exploded with shouts. "Break! Break! Break!" "It's the same American devil. I cannot shake him." Tanaka whipped his Zero into a tight roll, but the Corsair matched him flawlessly, clinging to his tail like a ghost. Every maneuver he attempted, the American plane countered with terrifying ease. "This is impossible," Tanaka growled. Another pilot screamed, "It's faster! Too fast!" Tanaka dove toward cloud cover. Again the Corsair followed. Again that terrible shriek filled the cockpit. Then tracers ripped past his window. Tanaka's hands shook. Sweat dripped into his eyes. He jerked the stick as bullets chewed through his left wing. "Retreat!" he shouted. "All units, retreat!" In 4 minutes, the once proud Zero Squadron was reduced to 3 burning wrecks and 3 fleeing survivors. Tanaka gasped for breath. The age of Zero supremacy had ended. And it ended not with a whisper, but with a whistle. The sun was barely cresting the tree line when the Marines began prepping the Corsairs. Sweat glistened across the mechanics' foreheads despite the early hour. Fuel hoses hissed, tools clanged, and the scent of engine oil hung thick in the air. The F4Us, lined like coiled predators, reflected the morning light off their bent wings. Lieutenant Sam Walker stood next to Corsair 217, helmet under his arm, watching Shorty Donnelly tighten the last panel on the cowling. "She's purring today," Shorty announced with triumph. "Got her engine running smoother than a preacher on Sunday." Sam patted the fuselage affectionately. "Hope she treats me nice." Shorty scoffed. "She ain't here to treat you nice. She's here to kill." Sam grinned. He liked that. Across the field, Tex McAllister jogged over, waving a clipboard. "Orders from command," Tex said, catching his breath. "Patrol over the Buka Passage. They want us escorting the bombers." Sam raised an eyebrow. "Zeros again?" Tex nodded. "Probably. Enemy activity's been spiking. Those boys are out for revenge after last week." Sam's jaw tightened. The memory of those earlier dogfights still burned in his mind. The way the Corsair had sliced through the sky with predatory force. The way the Zeros had broken, panicked, once the tide turned against them. It had been the first time Sam truly understood what the Corsair was becoming. Not a burden, not a liability, but a weapon. 35 minutes later, 16,000 feet over Buka Passage. The formation flew tight. 8 Corsairs escorting a group of lumbering B-25 Mitchells droning steadily beneath them. The air was smooth, eerily smooth. Nothing but the faint hum of engines and the glint of sunlight on metal. Suddenly, Tex's voice cracked through the radio. "Angels 11 coming in hot. Zeros, 12 o'clock high." Sam's eyes shot upward. They descended fast, very fast. At least 14 of them, slicing through the light like silver knives. Their formation was disciplined, fluid, beautiful in its own lethal way. Sam steadied his breathing. "Devil Squadron," he said calmly. Angle up. The Corsairs lifted their noses slightly, throttles forward, wings glinting. The Zeros formed a perfect diving wedge. Sam tightened his grip. Here they come. The sky erupted. Zeros swarmed downward like hawks, cannons flashing. Tracers streaked past Sam's canopy. A Mitchell bomber nearby took a hit, its wing erupting in a puff of shredded aluminum, but the plane held formation. Sam broke left, 3 Zeros chasing him. He rolled inverted, dove, then pulled a tight loop. The world spun into a blur of blue sky and green jungle. The Corsair held firm. No bucking. No wobbling. No hesitation. The bent-winged beast had finally learned discipline. As he leveled out, the 3 Zeros overshot him. Unable to follow the steep climb the Corsair managed, Sam smiled. His turn. He opened fire. The 50 cals roared, a thunderous chorus. The lead Zero burst into flames. The second snapped into a spiral of black smoke. The third tried to peel away but wasn't fast enough. Sam clipped its tail with a short burst, sending it tumbling downward. 3 down, Tex shouted. Sam, you're on fire today. Sam banked, scanning the chaos. The sky was filled with twisting contrails, diving planes, and the rhythmic flash of gunfire. Corsairs chased Zeros with terrifying speed. The Americans were no longer on the defensive. They were hunting. For the first time in the entire Pacific campaign, the Zeros seemed slow, predictable, outmatched. Old. A Japanese pilot attempted a high yo-yo maneuver, but Tex cut him off mid-climb. The Corsair soared upward with raw brute force the Zero couldn't hope to match. In seconds, Tex had him lined up. A short burst. Fire blossomed from the Zero's engine. It rolled belly first toward the water below. More Japanese voices screamed over their radio channel. Sam could hear them faintly through overlapping frequencies. It is too fast. Pull up, pull up. It climbs like a demon. We must retreat, retreat. Sam dove into the center of the fray, guns blazing, his engine screaming with the fury of the R-2800. Tracers tore through the air like white-hot needles of death. One by one, the Zeros began to break off. Their formation collapsed under the unrelenting weight of Corsair attacks. Hiroshi Tanaka, watching from higher altitude, clenched his jaw so tightly it hurt. This is not possible, he whispered. But it was happening. Below him, the sky, his sky, was being dominated by a new predator. The Zero had ruled for 2 years. But today, the crown was slipping. Within minutes, the last surviving Japanese pilots fled north toward Rabaul. Sam didn't chase them. He didn't need to. The message had already been delivered. The Zero was no longer king. A new ruler had taken its place. Bent wings, frightening speed, a whistle in the dive that chilled the blood. The F4U Corsair had arrived. And the Pacific would never be the same. The sky was growing darker by the minute. Towering columns of storm clouds rose like black mountains in the distance, their shadows crawling over the ocean. The air had that heavy metallic taste pilots knew well, the kind that meant turbulence, lightning, and unpredictable winds. Sam Walker's Corsair sliced through the humid air, droplets streaking across his canopy. The bent-winged bird shuddered slightly in the rough pockets ahead, but stayed steady. The Marines had begun trusting her now, respecting her, fearing her even sometimes. Devil Squadron, hold formation, Sam said into his radio. Weather's getting mean. Tex's voice crackled back. Weather's the least of our problems, Sam. Got a report from Coast Watchers? Big enemy raid inbound from the north. Sam exhaled slowly. Zeros? And bombers, a whole flight. Sam leaned forward. All right, eyes sharp. If they're headed toward the fleet... A burst of radio static cut Tex off. Contact, 12 o'clock high. Sam snapped his gaze upward. Like shadows peeling away from the clouds, dozens of aircraft emerged, dark silhouettes against the building storm. Twin-engine G4M, Betty bombers in tight formation. And escorting them were Zeros, lots of them. Jesus, Tex whispered through the radio. The whole damn hive's out. Sam steadied his grip on the stick. All right, boys, let's go to work. The Corsairs surged forward. In the Japanese formation, Hiroshi Tanaka flew with disciplined focus. His hands were steady on the controls, but inside, his heart hammered. He knew the Corsairs would come. They always came. And each time, fewer of his comrades returned. Tanaka's wingman Mori spoke quietly. Hiroshi, if we see that bent-wing demon again... Tanaka cut him off. We fight, like pilots, no fear. Yet he felt the fear, deep down, tightening around his ribs. The Zero had always been untouchable, agile, superior. But now, that cursed American machine had changed everything. Then the sky broke open. The Corsairs dove as one, 8 dark shapes streaking through the clouds like thunderbolts. Sam lined up a Betty bomber, its engines rumbling as it pushed toward the fleet. He fired a controlled burst, the 50 cals stitched across the bomber's wing, flame erupting from its engine. The massive aircraft dipped, spitting smoke. Tex whooped. Good hit! Sam pulled up sharply, just as 3 Zeros dropped toward him from above. Tanaka was among them. Now! He shouted in Japanese. Gunfire dazzled through the air. Tracers lashed past Sam's wings. He rolled hard right. The Corsair groaned, but obeyed. Two of the Zeros stayed glued behind him, their cannons flashing. Tanaka dove past them, aiming to cut Sam off from above. His instincts were sharp, trained through years of combat. "American!" he hissed. "I know you." Sam didn't know who was on his tail, but he could feel the precision. The Zero behind him wasn't just a good pilot. He was a predator. Sam cut throttle suddenly. The Corsair jerked as airflow changed. The Zero behind him, too light, too nimble, overshot instantly. Sam slammed throttle forward. The Corsair roared, vaulting upward. He flipped the tables. Now he was behind the Zero. Tanaka's eyes widened in horror as the American plane appeared in his mirror, like a dark omen rising. That whistling sound filled his ears again. "No, no," he gasped, banking hard. Sam's crosshairs locked onto the Zero's fuselage. He squeezed the trigger. Bullets punched through Tanaka's right wing. Fabric and metal burst away. The Zero lurched, trailing smoke. Sam lined up again. But then something unexpected happened. Another Zero dove between them, Mori, taking the hit that should have ended Tanaka. The tracers shredded Mori's aircraft, punching through the cockpit. The Zero burst into flames. "Mori!" Tanaka screamed. The burning aircraft spiraled downward, disappearing into storm clouds. Sam held his fire. He didn't want Mori. He wanted the pilot who kept reappearing, the skilled one, the one who understood fear now. Tanaka's voice shattered through the Japanese channel, grief-stricken. "Break off! All units, break off!" The remaining Zeros scattered into the storm, peeling away in desperate arcs. The bombers, exposed, fell one by one under Corsair fire. The sky belonged to the Marines. Again. Minutes later, the air was quiet except for distant thunder. Sam circled once, scanning the clouds where Mori had fallen. Tex joined him. "You all right, buddy?" Sam nodded. "Yeah, just thinking." Tex exhaled over the radio. "That Zero pilot, the good one, he's still out there." Sam didn't respond. He didn't need to. He knew it, felt it. Two pilots, two predators, circling closer each day, each encounter sharper, deadlier. And somewhere in the storm below, Hiroshi Tanaka gripped his controls, tears streaking down his cheeks, vowing silently, "Next time, one of us does not return." The balance of air power in the Pacific had shifted, and the next clash would decide whether the Zero still had a place in the sky, or whether the Corsair would erase it forever. The horizon was a razor-thin line of gold as the sun crept upward, washing the clouds in a pale glow. Beneath that fragile light, the ocean shimmered like molten metal. The air was eerily still, too still. A silence that felt wrong to Sam Walker, the kind of quiet that came before something violent. His Corsair cut through the sky with a low, steady hum. The cockpit rattled softly. The familiar smell of oil, gunpowder residue, and engine heat filled the cramped space. He checked his gauges. Fuel good, oxygen steady, engine temp climbing, but manageable. Tex's voice came in low over the radio. "Sam, you feel that?" Sam swallowed. "Yeah. Feels like the sky's holding its breath." Sam didn't answer. He simply scanned the clouds ahead, his senses sharpened by instinct. Something was coming. Something inevitable. And then it appeared, a single Zero. High, alone, cutting across the dawn like a silver knife. Sam's jaw tightened. Tex's breath caught. "It's him." Sam didn't need confirmation. Hiroshi Tanaka, the pilot who had outmaneuvered him weeks ago, the pilot who had survived when others fled, the pilot who now flew alone, seeking revenge for Mori. Sam angled his Corsair upward, throttling gently, careful not to spook the Zero. Tanaka didn't run. He didn't dive. He simply turned, slowly, deliberately, facing Sam head-on across the empty morning sky. A silent challenge. Sam exhaled. "All right, you want this? Let's finish it." In the Zero cockpit, Tanaka's hands were steady now, his fear replaced with something colder, resolute. He had practiced for this moment, studied the Corsair's moves, imagined every angle of their duel. "This time," he whispered, "I do not flee." His Zero, scarred, weathered, but still sharp, angled toward the rising sun. The light bathed its wings in warm gold. For a moment, the plane looked mythic, like a relic from a fading age. Then Tanaka pushed the throttle. The duel began. The two fighters converged. At first, they approached cautiously, like wolves circling, testing. The Zero turned tight, slicing the air with surgical grace. The Corsair counter-rolled, letting its weight and speed dictate the fight. They met at the center of the sky in a flash of passing metal. Sam yanked the stick. 4Gs crushed his chest. Tanaka spiraled upward, pure Zero mastery. Sam couldn't match that turn, not at low speed. He pulled into a climbing roll instead, using the Corsair's power to barrel up and over. Tanaka climbed after him, wings biting into the thin air. The two aircraft danced a deadly circle. Climb, roll, dive, snap. Each maneuver answered perfectly by the other. Sam grinned beneath his oxygen mask. "You're good. Damn good," Tanaka muttered in Japanese. Stronger, faster, but not untouchable. He dove straight at the Corsair, head on. A suicidal move for any normal Zero. Sam braced. Guns spat fire. Tanaka didn't flinch. He rolled a hair's width aside, bullets shredding only empty sky, then sliced past Sam so close their canopies nearly touched. For a moment, one impossible, fleeting moment, Sam saw his eyes. Focused, burning, human. Then the two fighters separated again, engines screaming as they banked hard into the next pass. Sam pulled the Corsair into a vertical climb. The Zero followed, but could not maintain the ascent. Tanaka felt the stall coming, felt the thin air slipping through his prop, felt the Zero losing its grip. He tried to roll out, too late. Sam came down in a hammerhead turn, the Corsair's wingtip slicing a perfect arc through the morning light. He lined up the shot, but he didn't fire. Not yet. Tanaka recovered low, diving toward a cloud bank. Sam followed, letting the Corsair's mass build lethal energy. The whistle in the dive grew louder, its signature death cry. Tanaka realized it then. The Zero was still agile, still beautiful, still deadly in the right hands. But the Corsair was evolution. The sky had changed, aircraft had changed, warfare had changed. He could not outclimb it. He could not outrun it. He could not outdive it. Not anymore. Tanaka pulled into one final turn, a perfect, sharp, elegant arc. A Zero pilot's last masterpiece. Sam's crosshairs settled naturally. He didn't hesitate this time. He fired. The 50 cals roared. The Zero's wing erupted in flame. The aircraft rolled, trailing black smoke, spiraling downward. Sam followed with his eyes until it vanished into the clouds. He didn't cheer, didn't smile, didn't feel triumph. Just silence. Tex's voice broke it. Sam, you got him? Sam didn't answer immediately. He stared at the empty patch of sky where the Zero had disappeared. Finally, he spoke softly. Yeah, it's over. Later that afternoon, Henderson Field. Sam stepped away from his Corsair, exhausted, sweat-soaked, staring at the bent wings with a new appreciation. Tex walked up beside him. Hell of a fight, huh? Sam nodded slowly. He was the best I've ever faced. Tex put a hand on his shoulder. Zero pilots ain't the same anymore. Not after today. They'll think twice before facing an F4U. Sam didn't reply. Because the truth was heavier than pride. The Corsair hadn't just won. It had ended an era. The Zero, once feared across the Pacific, had met its match, and the Pacific skies no longer belonged to Japan. Tex smirked. Ain't nobody laughing now? And, as the sun dipped behind the palms, painting the sky orange and gold, the F4U Corsairs on the field stood ready. Engines cooling, metal glinting. A new king reigned in the Pacific.